This is Ben Landesman with Lawson Screen and Digital Products.
This is Deborah Sexton.
This is Peter Walsh with M&R.
Scott Ritter with the Decorated Apparel Expo.
And you are listening to Two Regular Guys
Podcast.
It's hosted by Terry Combs and Aaron Montgomery.
A gift to the industry.
All right, well, welcome to the show. It is Friday, June 5th, 2020. I'm Terry Combs. You can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Erich Campbell, and you can find me at oursuccessgroup.com. Today, Terry, we're going to be talking with our show producer, Erich Campbell, again. Excited to have him back. This is part 2 of our recent discussion on e-commerce. And most people know Erich for his extreme powers of digitizing, but he also has many other talents. That's why we call him Batman. His many talents, and e-commerce is one of those. So it's always a great time talking to him about e-commerce, Terry. Last time we kind of talked about pitfalls to avoid. So we kind of got the things, the what not to do part out of the way. And this week we want to get our notebooks out. Terry, do you have your yellow legal pad handy? Okay.
And a backup.
Just in case. Okay,
Just in case.
Good. Well, I have my dry erase stickers all over my wall, so I'll just start writing on my wall. And but anyhow, we want to make sure that you guys are ready to take some notes. And today we're going to talk about the what to do, the foundation pieces, the things that are really important to have in place as you're kind of setting out to improve and make your e-commerce platform and presence stronger. So going to be a great show today, Terry. I'm excited about that.
I can't wait to see what he pulls out of his utility belt. And I'm picturing the comic now. Erich and his mild manner. He's a DJ by day, Erich.
Oh no. He got it in early, Erich. I'm sorry.
And by night, he's the Dark Knight.
Oh man, this is great. Christine, we've got your next novel on deck for you here. Or I don't know, Terry, is this one you're going to write? I don't want to steal your thunder there.
I'll put it on the list. So
okay,
it's not available yet. I have it under contract.
Oh shoot, sorry, Christine. Speaking of Christine, she is jumping in, says good morning, and Erich is even in the comments already. I mean, he is on top of it. So good morning. Hello, Jerry. Christine, as soon as we bring Erich on, it will be chaos. Nothing but chaos, as per usual for Two Regular Guys. But no, it will be fun. Frank checking in says, good afternoon. Frank, if you remember right, Terry is coming to us from the UK. So
exactly right.
It's winding down over there. Time to potentially grab a pint. I'm not sure if Frank partakes, but yes, indeed. Thank you so much
for counting his P's and Q's.
And Todd and David and Joe and Curtis and everybody checking in this morning. So thank you guys so much for being here. Todd says the club tour is on hold, so he's dropping the beats live on Insta. Oh man! All right, so
sorry, Erich.
Yeah, you owe Erich another drink, Terry. So,
yep.
But hey, you know what?
I don't want another drink.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit of news here before we bring Erich in to talk e-commerce. A couple things that came across here this morning. For me, I saw that Screen Printing Magazine announced the first ever Women in Screen Print Award. So a really cool opportunity here. We're excited. The new editor over there, and I just blanked on her name. Adriana, something like that. Somebody help me out here. I apologize. I totally just blanked. But she's really doing some cool things over there at Screen Printing Magazine. And so here's the info on that. To honor today's female leaders, Screen Print Magazine is looking for 6 accomplished women who, through their careers, industry involvement, and philanthropic roles, have sparked innovation, spurred business growth, improved their communities, and enhanced the screen print industry. Nominees must hold a leadership position at a company that produces screen printing, and as its primary function. Honorees will appear in the Screen Print Magazine October-November 2020 issue and be recognized during the Printing United in Atlanta. So the deadline to submit nominees is August 4th, and we will get the nominee form up in the comments. I'm sure if Erich hasn't already done that, he will, but we will also have that in our show notes. There it is. Yes, he did. Good look at that. So, anyhow, that's really cool. We're excited that that they're doing that, and I think that's continued going in the right direction. We love that. We support that, and I want to. I'm trying to. I'm kind of wrapping my head around some nominations that I want to make. There's a couple people out there that I'm thinking about. So. Let's see here. Let me get one more comment here. A couple comments here real quick. Charles said, I got my coffee and I'm ready to learn about e-commerce. And Valerie and Sharon checking in. And we'll leave Todd's comment out for now. And Kim Johnson, good morning. Pleased to have you along. Terry, what else do you got there? You want me to? Oh, let me get this next one. I missed my mark there. The other bit of news to announce is the ASI show has announced new fall dates for ASI Chicago. The Chicago trade show rescheduled from July to September 30th through October 1st. According to ASI, we're rescheduling ASI Chicago because we want to be an integral part of the next all-important phase of the recent crisis economy recovery for our industry, our members, and the great city of Chicago. So you can check out more details on that over at asishows.com. What about you, Terry? What do you got?
Very cool. Well, hey, I talked to Katie at MBM, and she asked me to point out that the MBM Charlotte show is actually November 5th and 6th. Last week I'd said that it was going to be the 6th and 7th, and she said, well, you weren't wrong. It originally was printed as the 6th and 7th. And, I put together Terry's Big Book of Travel like 6 months before the year. So I was working with some erroneous information. The convention center had them reserved for the 5th and 6th. And they long ago changed it to November 5th and 6th. But I still had that old information. So she wanted me to let you guys know that. And Impressions Expo, Josh says there are no updates to give right now other than they are still a go with Fort Worth, Orlando, and Atlantic City. And Aaron, I was thinking, with the regulators listening in right now, I have a question. When and if there's a trade show in the year 2020, first of all, will you go? Second of all, will you attend seminars? And what will you do differently if you do go to this show? And tell us also if you are going to be going there as a vendor or as an attendee. But I'd love to have some comments about future shows, because that seems to be the debate. First of all, when will there be a show? When will be that first show? And will people attend? Will folks who would normally go to, say, Fort Worth or normally go to, Charlotte, are you going to go? Are you going to be going for 2 or 3 days? Or are you just going to go for one day? Will you go into a closed classroom? I'm curious to hear what people have to say about it. So I'll throw that out there for comments. Yeah.
So regulators, if you guys want to jump in on that, I know for us, for the decorators community and two regular guys, I got a note from Decorated Apparel Expo from DAX yesterday that they finally were able to get in touch with the people at Minnesota at Treasure Island.
Is that show from last month finally canceled?
Yeah, that show that was supposed to happen last month, it's finally been canceled. So, but he had an update on Chicago and that it's still, as of right now, is on pace to happen. And so that would, if it does happen as scheduled, that would probably be the first industry trade show since the coronavirus kind of situation, pandemic happened. So it will be interesting to see how that looks. He had mentioned that they're actually getting registered from people from areas outside of the Chicagoland area. So, further away, people that are coming in. So, kind of said, hey, we don't know what it's going to look like, but that does seem to mean that, people are hungry to get back in front of each other. Like you said, how's that going to look? What's going to be different? We're all going to wear masks. We're no handshakes. There's going to be differences for sure. I don't know, Terry. What are your thoughts?
And Aaron, the DAX show also, there are certain folks who go to Kansas City. There are certain folks you see every year in Minnesota, certain folks you see every year in Chicago. And if Minnesota's not there, maybe those folks are saying, well, I still want to go to DAX, and Chicago's not that much further away, I guess, in the scheme of things. And it's really weird because at the Minnesota show, for whatever reason, I have a huge number of people attend that show who've gone to my screen printing classes. We took a group picture once, and there were 20 people who had actually gone through my screen printing classes, mostly in Chicago, but and that's one thing that I think is hard for all of us. Yeah, we want to go to the shows and we want the education and everything, but there's also people that we see every year at this show or that show, and that's the one time a year you get to see them, and I think that's what's missing for a lot of us, and I think that's why also our cocktail parties that we've done a few times have been so popular. Is folks just want to get together and chat. So
yeah, definitely. So Todd says, see you in Chicago. The hardest thing will not be touching people. Charles said, I'm hoping to be able to go to Printing United, and yes, we will attend seminars.
Very good.
Christine says, I will be at DAX Chicago. I have to speak. A little nervous about it, but I know the DAX people will take every precaution. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have to be aware, things that you would normally do, just be more hyper aware and understanding, and don't be offended if somebody doesn't kind of keeps their distance and all that stuff. So Tony says we are going to Dallas show, and Christine said definitely have missed connecting with people at the shows. It's kind of a tradition to see some people. Sharon says instead of handshakes, there are elbow taps or foot taps. I'm sticking to elbow greetings. I don't do well on one foot.
We're probably still not allowed to do gun fingers though, right?
Still not appropriate.
Unless you graduated from Texas Tech, I think.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And and then I haven't seen this name in a while, Terry. Joe, hello. Good to see you, sir.
Hey, Joe.
Hopefully you are doing well, my friend. And Maria checking in. And then one other little off topic, but I saw this comment. It's up a little ways, Eric. I apologize. But Becky said, good morning. And then show me how to make money. And for whatever reason, the immediate picture that popped into my head was the movie Show Me the Money. Show me the money. What the heck is the name of that movie? Why do I keep blanking on stuff today?
Oh gosh.
Somebody will come up with it.
Yeah.
We've got much smarter people listening in. So regulators, thank you guys. And again, if you have any other comments about shows, there we go. Jerry McGuire, our wonderful producer, Eric, there to save the day again. So, all right, cool. So, Terry, good stuff. Good discussions. Love to keep that conversation going. We can do it in the comments section. We can, however you guys want. Let's keep that conversation going. Christine says, can't wait for Atlantic City. The show specials are always amazing. I've made so many masks. I'm sure I can come up with some awesome shopping appropriate quirky masks to wear. So yeah, we'd love to see those. That sounds really cool. So all right. Well, thanks for all the help on the Jerry Maguire thing. Terry, the moment that everybody is really here for today.
Is it dad joke time?
It is dad joke time. So here we go. Are you ready?
And you did replace it, Aaron, because I messaged you about an hour ago saying, I don't get that.
So the original dad joke was a 9-year-old original made up on his own, and good intentions, but I think was a spur of the moment thing. So
swing and a miss.
just outside. So we'll go with one off the interwebs, and if anybody else has any they'd like to share, please feel free. But here it is. You ready, Terry?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Did you hear the rumor about butter?
I did not hear the rumor about butter.
Well, I'm not going to spread it.
I can't believe it's not butter.
All right. Well, dad joke time is come. And again, if you guys have any, the comments will be full of those. Terry, for those folks that are listening to the podcast version and potentially over on iHeartRadio now, which is pretty exciting, but for those listening to the podcast version of this, we do encourage you to make sure that you drop into our Facebook page, facebook.com/2regularguys. And because there's tons of wonderful comments happening from the regulators, the community of folks that listen live. And, we don't get a chance to get to every single one of them. And plus those conversations go on for weeks to come. So definitely make sure you get over there and check that out and be part of the conversation as well. But I think we need to keep moving here, though, Terry, because we've got some great information coming up from Erich here shortly.
All right, Aaron, before we go any further, though, we want to thank everyone for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. If you are listening to the podcast version, Aaron, as you said, we would appreciate you sharing with your friends and so they can become regulators too. Plus, we would love and appreciate your reviews on Apple Podcasts. We're over at iHeartRadio. It would be awesome if you guys would go to iHeartRadio and add some positive comments, we hope. We're always looking for new guests. If you or anybody else would like to join us on the show, go to calendly.com/2. That's the number 2, regular guys, with your show ideas. If you're watching us live right now, join in with your comments and questions. We'd love to have everybody participate with Erich's talk on e-commerce, and reach out to your industry friends right now and have them join us here right now.
Yeah, you bring them on. So we'd love to have more people tuning in and sharing their information and learning from the great Erich Campbell coming up here shortly. But before we do that, Terry, let's hear a word from our platinum sponsor, Impressions Expo. What is Impressions Expo? Impressions Expo, formerly known as ISS, is the premier trade show dedicated to the imprinted and decorated apparel industry. They have 5 shows that are produced annually in each region of the United States, including Long Beach, California, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Orlando, Florida, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and cap off the year at Fort Worth, Texas. Each of those 5 annual shows also feature over 30 seminars and hands-on workshops in categories such as screen printing, embroidery, digitizing, digital decorating, and much, much more. Visit impressionsexpo.com for more details. And while there, use the promo code RegularGuysIE for a free expo pass. Again, make sure you visit impressionsexpo.com to get more details. And the Two Regular Guys look forward to seeing you there. All right. Well, thanks again to the Impressions Expo for their support of the Two Regular Guys program. As Terry said, they've got some things coming up. So hopefully, for their sake, everything kind of stays as is and they can get back to having their amazing, awesome shows. I know a lot of people are looking forward to everything that they've got coming up here, from Atlantic City to Fort Worth. Am I missing one? What was the other one, Terry? Is there a third one that's still going to happen this year?
Orlando,
thank you.
And yeah, you mentioned Atlantic City, I think.
Yeah, Atlantic City, Orlando, and Fort Worth still to come in 2020. So fingers crossed for them that all still happens. I know they're putting in the hard work to make sure that when their shows happen, that everybody's safe and everything's done right. And so make sure that you reach out to them over there at impressionsexpo.com and just give them a kudos. Tell them thanks for everything that they do and a pat on the back, and tell them that the Two Regular Guys send our best wishes their way and appreciate their support. So
absolutely. All right. Well, Aaron, are you ready to get started?
Let's do this.
All right.
Let's get our learn on.
As many of you already know, Erich Campbell is usually the man behind the scenes pushing the buttons for the Two Regular Guys, or in his alter ego life, he's spinning discs as DJ Erich.
Oh, man.
Those of you who have been in the decorating business know him as a machine embroidery digitizer and educator. He's written many industry magazine articles. And you may not know that Erich has been deeply involved in building and running e-commerce stores for most of his decorating career, even spending a stint working for a major industry e-commerce company. So he is an expert. With that, let's bring Erich back on so he can join the discussion.
Welcome, Erich.
Thanks for having me on. I mean, I didn't know about this extensive DJ career. I know that.
I know it's been all the buzz here on the show. I don't know if you've noticed.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently, everybody's really into this concept. So maybe I'm missing out, folks. I don't think I'm that great for it. I don't know that I'm ready to premiere just yet. But
I'm like a politician. If I say it enough times, it's going to be true.
I've witnessed this. This is true, guys. It's science. If
It is science.
It may happen.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, no, thank you for having me back on. I mean, it feels weird to be pushing buttons and then suddenly I get brought in on the other side. It's a weird feeling to be on, guys, but I'm happy to kind of come in here and talk about e-commerce because it actually is something I'm fairly passionate about as well as embroidery. Just because I have been involved in not only doing a lot of stores myself, but helping a lot of other people get their stores off the ground. So it's something I really do feel quite a bit about. But in that realm, what I want to do, because you guys both also, you got tons of sales experience, e-commerce experience, and just industry experience. I want to bring some points up and see if we can just kind of bat them around like we did last time and talk about different things that we've seen going on. So with that, I think I'm going to call these the pillars. And I do this a lot. I have these pairs of things that I set up, like the pitfalls and pillars. You'll see me do that over and over if you've seen me write for a while. I did this with the digitizing classes recently too. So we had the pitfalls, all the stuff you shouldn't do. Some of this is going to echo some of that. These pillars, these things that you should build up and should be supporting your e-commerce. But with that, I think we can still talk kind of about, not only what you should do to build it up, but the way you should go about your e-commerce business to make it successful. So because so many times people have the field of dreams attitude. I always call it that, where they just got, if you build it, they will come, and this is absolutely not true for e-commerce. And just throwing out a site does not mean you're going to start making internet money. Luckily, these days, it's not like original boom 1 or boom 2 for the internet, where everybody just believes internet money exists. As soon as you open a site, at least people know that now. But there's still plenty of people I talk to on a daily basis where it's like the amount of effort they've put into e-commerce is, I bought the package. And that's not quite enough.
I put my website up, and I don't know why I'm not making $1 million
It
this
must
week.
be the economy.
It must be.
It's not me.
It's them. They don't get my brilliant idea. That is my favorite one. They just don't get my brilliant idea. So, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and bonus before I even talk about the pieces that are there that we already discussed talking about, is that promotions, we're not going to get a whole lot into promotions. This is more about operations and how you set things up. But if you're not marketing, hey guys, you have to be marketing. People can't go to a thing that you don't tell people about. And especially the one failure, if I talk about that briefly, we'll talk about one last pitfall again, since it's so critical, is that so many people will come to me and say, okay, I already have a brick and mortar business, and then I added to it e-commerce, and none of my original brick and mortar people are using it. And you find out that they have done almost nothing to make anybody aware of it, number one. Number two, let them understand why it's better, useful, different, or in any way, shape, or form, something that their existing customer base should do, let alone a new customer base. So yeah, promotions. Underneath all of this, if you're not doing promotions once your stuff is built, it doesn't matter how much of the rest of these pillars you set up. It just won't help, guys.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah. Get it out there. Make sure that you're letting people know about it. That's obviously a great tip. But yeah, so like you said, Eric, last week we talked about, or not last week, the last time, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the pitfalls and things not to do, as I kind of talked about at the top. But let's lay this foundation here, Eric. Tell us about the first pillar.
Hey, Eric, before you start, another analogy from Field of Dreams. One of the things late in the movie, the voice from the corn said, "Ease his pain. Ease his pain." So go.
No, this is actually good. This is good. You're right. This is true. Ease of use. One of the pillars has got to be ease of use, folks. And this is the thing. No matter how you're employing this, because there's multiple strategies for employing e-commerce. You could be making a new store or a new brand, something that is not your existing work. You can do it you can do a retail line. You can do company stores. You can have a custom decoration store where people are decorating online. Those things are absolutely useful. However, if we don't have ease of use, there's no point to any of this stuff. No matter how you employ it, no matter how much percentage is brick and mortar, how much is e-commerce, the technology should make this easier. It should make the process of ordering decorated goods easier. Everything you do, from your design, how you design your forms, the platform you use, how you decide to accept payment, you have to have this kind of mantra in mind that you never increase complexity for the user unless you have to. And I'm saying that in a complex way myself. Don't make things hard. When people are trying to give you their money, don't make it hard for them to do so. There are tons of people who will put up a site and you'll find out, especially quoting, this is one of the worst. If you're doing custom quotes, people will ask for every detail about the job before they do the quote or before the first contact point. So you will have a form that is 100 fields long. Ask for 2 pieces of information and then do the contact point. Like, don't, as few fields as you can have filled out before you get to the interview so you can start the process of actually communicating with someone is probably better. I mean, we all know that we want more information to do the quote quickly. Anyone who has had any sort of technical problem where a form has deleted, where you accidentally backed up on something when you're on your phone and you started from a search so you're not in the real browser and you accidentally wipe out a form, everyone knows how frustrating that is. Don't do that to your user. And especially when we're getting down to the payment point, that's another thing. Go through your process. We said this in the pitfalls. People aren't aware of their process. They don't go through and do their own test orders. Go through and do an audit on ease of use. How many touches does it take? How many steps does it take to get from I want a thing to I'm paying for a thing, I'm putting in my order, and try and reduce the friction as much as possible. So for you guys, I would love to hear from you too, and from anybody in the comments too. How have you seen this go wrong, or how have you worked on this? What do you do to make this right for yourselves, or what have you seen in ways that it didn't go right for other folks?
Well, let me give you an example that, everybody knows Vistaprint. Vistaprint's a cool site. Vistaprint, I preach to people, have business cards, have lots of business cards, and a great place to get those is Vistaprint, but every time I go there, I think, all right, how much do I really have the 15 minutes that I need to commit to this? Because it's not in ordering the business cards. It's boom, boom, boom. It's getting out. It's no, I don't think I do want this on a magnet. No, I don't think I do want this on a memo pad. No, I don't think I do want this on a t-shirt. I just want to buy some business cards, but that is in my mind. Every time I think of Vistaprint, I think, man, it sure is hard to check out. And we should all think that. And this is true in all of our businesses. Very few of us in our industry and a lot of industries deal with professional buyers. Yeah. And so ease of use is much higher on their list than what the price is. The price is a small thing compared to, can I just get in and get out? And I just want to buy a darn t-shirt. You know what I mean? Or I want to buy a cup with a logo on it or whatever it is. Just let me get in and get out and go on with my life.
And let me tell you, this has been a sales point for a bunch of the company stores I've done where I have had people stick with our company's stores that are more expensive, that are closer to retail prices, entirely built on the fact, I'm reading comments now, entirely built on the fact that that we have the easiest way to get orders done. Plus team sports. If you have ever had someone who is the organizer who has to collect all the sweaty handfuls of money from parents and kids to get stuff done, and you offer them instead, here's a web store where each one of your people can come on, spell their kid's name right, number one, so that you don't have to do it, and then pay for it individually so that you're not collecting money anymore. That amount of ease of use is a selling point for e-commerce in the first place. Huge selling point. Or distribution, because sometimes with our e-commerce, it makes it easier for us to take these things, make them individual orders, kick them out and package them. When it's time for distribution for team sports, for a uniforming for a company, even if you do a mass order instead of individual, kind of rolling orders the way you would do with a traditional store, being able to then distribute this thing with automated labels or whatever comes out of the back end of this thing means that you have this awesome, easy distribution that makes it simple for these organizers and simple for people who, like you said, like purchasers. So big companies, corporate stuff, uniforming, team sports, all of them love that ease of use, and it's super important. So yeah, definitely check it out. But let's get back. Where's that comment? I want that back. We got Todd here.
Todd said there.
But if they said, do you want this on a yellow legal pad? Sold.
Carry that funny, Todd. You can never have enough junior yellow legal pads.
And if they were just printed with terrycombs.com on them from Vistaprint, I'm sure there'd be a stack of them sitting there.
Whoever's running your classes for you, I demand yellow legal pads with terrycombs.com.
Nice. So about that point, though, I love that what you guys mentioned, when you're talking about the ease of use, because, ease of use becomes a differentiator, 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 Terry mentioned the fact that price doesn't really matter as much as ease of use for most folks. And so this is a perceived value situation.
Yeah.
You can provide more value because you're providing more ease of use. I mean, if we talk about Amazon, as we talked about a lot the last time too, think about that. That's what their whole thing is. It's ease of use. How easy is it for me to part with my money? And they do everything they can to make it as easy as possible for me. And there's lots of times where, yeah, I'm pretty sure I spent more than if I would have, searched around or done something else. But because it was so easy to go, yep, I do need that. Just throw that in there. That's fine. That kind of ease of use thing. But then the other point that I wanted to make on this was, when you're thinking about ease of use, you also need to think about what your niche is, because if you really understand who your niche is, who you're trying to sell to, and you really are in tune with them, you're going to understand what makes it easier for them. So Eric, your suggestion about, what you do with the delivery after the fact or all that other stuff, but that comes down to you knowing how that process goes for them.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that you can make it different. So if you're saying, hey, I'm doing, this custom labeling, but yet your niche market doesn't care about that, then you're just wasting time and money.
If you're dealing with like contract style people who are used to getting printers folded bundles and that's all they want, then spending more time on that doesn't make sense, of course. In fact, that we're going to talk later about applicability of the way we run our stuff, and that's absolutely right. But for me, this is like design thinking. And when I say design thinking, what I chiefly mean by a very simplified version of this is that designers see a problem they're trying to solve. They're trying to identify a problem that someone has and they want to solve it through design. And that's what we're doing with e-commerce here too. E-commerce as a tool is only useful in and when it solves a problem somebody's having. That's really where it's useful. And if we can identify that problem, and especially, like I said, your people, what they're dealing with, you identify a pain point and then you solve it. Yeah, price is nowhere near as important there. Now, are you still going to be dealing with price? Everybody's dealing with price all the time. That's not like it's not going to exist.
Right.
At the same time,
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're in close proximity with someone, they're not looking to see, do you make a little more profit if the experience is good and if they really are getting a problem solved.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And Eric, you had kind of asked, have you seen this go wrong and that kind of thing. So I've got a couple of examples. First off, you mentioned the thing about the form. I mean, I think that's if you take one thing away from what Eric said today, guys, that would be the thing that I think is the most important. That form that you have on your website, if that's the first contact point that they have with you and it's 15 fields long, then you probably have to rethink that a little bit, because yes, you do want to get all the information, but that first contact should just be first name, email address. Then you build from there. Then you build that relationship, and then get into the, okay, let's exchange, let's build trust, let's do all that. Because you said, how many times have you been filling out a form and you've spent 15 minutes doing it, and all of a sudden something happens on your phone or whatever. I mean, I literally I have a temper sometimes, so I just admit that I have broken my phone before when that happened, and I have never bought from that company. So
yeah,
that's an extreme example. And then the other part is kind of understanding too what your business is all about. So, let's say you're a digital decorator and your claim to fame is that you've got super fast turnaround, but yet you take 48 hours to get back on a quote. Those two things don't match up. So that takes away that ease of use part that you had. I actually worked for a company before I got into this industry. In fact, right before I got into this industry, in fact, it probably drove me to this industry because one of the customers that was on my call list was U.S. Screen Printing Institute, but they were, cutting edge, had this new digital Heidelberg, we can turn stuff in 24 hours. Yet I think I probably told this story many times before, but it took them forever. There was one guy that did the quotes, and there was a line of salespeople at his door waiting to get quotes, and it would take days. And I remember the first time a customer said, it takes you longer to get me a quote than it does for you to print my job.
Yeah.
I knew at that point I needed out of there because that wasn't.
All of these points we have also apply to process in your shop. I mean, really, it's like I said about commerce. Every time I say e-commerce, I feel like a fraud because the truth of the matter is we just have commerce, and sometimes it's done on websites and sometimes it's done somewhere else. I mean, there's some specific stuff that we're talking about here that has digital ramifications for how you set up. But otherwise, it's just commerce. This is just commerce. It's a good way to do commerce. It's no better if people come to your door and you stop them and make them do too much work to get in with you. I mean, there should be discussion that helps you narrow down what they need so that you don't have them doing all this extra work. It's like the when I talk about curating, which was last time, not curating your collection. I feel like it's the same thing people do in a shop. If someone comes in and asks you about shirts and you grab X vendor catalog and slap it in front of them and go, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Bad service, my friend. It's not going to help. And they're going to be paralyzed by the amount of choices they have. Curating there and giving them suggestions there is the same as curating your collection online. It's the same kind of experience. So none of this is groundbreaking when it comes to that. This is just process. And same thing with ease of use, man. Just make it easy as best you can.
I got to say, my mind's blown a little bit because I totally thought e-commerce was short for Erich Commerce. I thought this was your thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, being the inventor of e-commerce.
Nice.
Right after I finished building the internet.
Exactly. Thank you.
And Al Gore.
Building the internet in a garage. Okay.
So, as we were talking about team sports, Todd, he does a lot of team sports there.
Yeah.
So we tell our teams, let the coaches coach, let the parents yell at the coaches and umps, and let us take care of the apparel. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And honestly, I want to bring in one from Christine Shreve. And this is the thing, whenever you're thinking about this stuff, every company that does e-commerce needs to walk through their process multiple times. And if people test the site who haven't been working on it for months, absolutely. New eyes will almost always find things that people who've been working with sites for months may miss. My favorite thing to do is the honest truth. My wife is not all that invested in all the stuff that I do. So what I like to do is show her stuff because she's not in the industry real deeply. She's not in the background of it. If I hand her something, she can often just say, yeah, why are you doing this? And I have to stop and go, yeah, I don't know why. I have no idea why we did that. I'm like, because we do that. Oh, wait, that's right. That's the worst reason to do anything is because that's the way we do it. Okay, never mind.
Well, I think that's an excellent point too, is when you mentioned before testing your site. Yeah, you can't be the person that built the site and then go test it because you're clicking past things that that everybody else is stopping to read.
Yeah, here's the part that I didn't fix, but I know how to get past it. Yeah, nobody else knows that. Right. It's the thing that I said last
my workaround.
Everybody likes to go, oh man, my clients are just stupid. Okay, if your clients are stupid and it's stupid people who are giving you money, then you better get your site where it works for stupid people. Sorry, there's the mean way of putting it. Like if that's who you're selling to is people who don't know how to use a website, then you better make your website real easy to use. That's who's paying.
All right. Well, speaking of who's paying, we have to go one more comment here. If you do e-commerce right, you become e-rich.
Oh God.
I thought we were done with the dad jokes, but
that is probably the worst one yet. But you know what?
All right, Terry. Eric,
let's get to the second pillar. Minutes in. Yeah, let's go to the second point. out of a proposed 5, which we'll never get on the show. All right, so the second one is accessibility. And when I say accessibility, really all I'm talking about in this case is that your site needs to work on the platforms that are that your people are most likely to use. Number one. So there's actually a few different ways you can get to accessibility. Accessibility can mean a lot of things. So I'm going to kind of go over multiple things. First, if your people are all mobile users and you know that you've got 80% mobile users, and if you're using something like Google Analytics where you can literally see, okay, my traffic is 85% mobile, having a site that only works on desktop blown up on an HD screen doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If all of your people are accessing it mobile, or especially your first touch, then you definitely want to get in and make sure that your site works on mobile and loads fast and has its content optimized. That really should be readily navigated without question of where things are going too. That's the next part of it being accessible. Getting into the site, getting into the places where you buy, getting into the different categories should make sense and be very easy to get to. If people can't figure out where to click, they won't click, they'll leave. So you need to be able to get into each of these locations or each of the different parts of your company, or to get to the products that they need to get to easily. There shouldn't be a lot of questions as to what's the next step and what I need to do. Calls to action should be really clear and available. So I think that's also accessibility. Also, bleeds into your content to some degree. It's like I said earlier, if you, and I'll be honest, let's just say it. Let's say that your clientele is not down for detailed descriptions of things. Well, then make them simpler. If your content is a certain way that is inaccessible to your core audience, where it doesn't make sense to them, where it's highly technical when the people aren't, or maybe you are being very, honestly, it can be also tone. You can have it where your site is very friendly and loose and fun, but the kind of people you're dealing with are looking for professional specs. You can have a mismatch in tone that makes things not accessible in a content way. So all of these things have to come together to make accessibility happen. Number one, the technical side of it. If people are accessing it on phones, if they're accessing it on desktop, wherever they're coming to you from, your site should be able to handle that and be literally accessible. They should be able to get to things. Structure-wise, it should not be a question how people get from one step to the next, how people find the different things they need. If there's ever a time where they're asking a question, they're probably lost. And lastly, your content should communicate the best way it can for your audience. So it needs to make sense to them, and that should be accessible. They shouldn't have to look for information that they need. If they need sizing information, which they almost always do, you shouldn't make it hard to find the sizing information for the garments. You need to make sure that is very easily found. Any of the things that are critical to the decision-making process to ensuring trust have to be accessible and out front. So really, I know this is kind of broad. This is definitely widely, it arches over everything that we're doing here, but I would like to kind of hear, do you guys have your own stories? Do you have some examples of how you had that accessibility problem where there's a mismatch between maybe where people are coming from, where you can't use something that seems like you should be able to, or how you feel about like setting up accessibility?
Terry, you want to take that, or you want? I've got a couple of thoughts if you don't mind.
Go with it.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I think you really kind of hit home a couple of things there for me, Eric, is that, yeah, make it easy to use. I mean, think about, you should definitely be going to a site like gtmetrics.com and making sure that your site loads quickly, that you have a good score there. The one challenge, I guess, would be the best way to put it. The one thing about e-commerce shoppers, and think about your own use of e-commerce and buying off the web, as an example, is we tend to be very fickle. So if something doesn't go right quickly, it's real easy for us to just move on, and not take the action or whatever, as opposed to, if I'm walking into a store, and if I'm standing there, I'm not going to just probably walk out unless I'm really perturbed, whereas with an e-commerce thing, if I am like, oh my God, this is taking forever to load, I'm out. So your page load speed, so make sure that the images are sized correctly for that. Like I said, use a site like gtmetrics.com to grade your site. So that's one thing with accessibility. But then, like you mentioned about the content, and I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago in the things to avoid. But I had several situations where I'm trying to figure out something for my site, and I get to these different SMS services, and they're throwing stuff at me. I think I'm not crazy technical, but I know enough to be dangerous, and I think I can kind of figure things out for the most part. Yeah. Holy cow, I felt like I was reading a foreign language, yet they're saying that, this is for anybody. We can get you in front of your customers easily. And then I'm reading this stuff going, I got nothing. So, I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm gonna have to hire somebody to put this in place for me, and yada, yada, yada. Do I really need it? And so those are the kind of the accessibility things to think about. Like you said, what's the feeling that you're conveying to folks when they get there? I mean, I go and see people's sites all the time, and it just, it kind of feels like web 1.0 to me still, some of these sites, it's like, wow, this was definitely made on a platform that was introduced back in the 90s,
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't always have to be that your platform is like the most highly technical. It could be that your users are fine with something that's pretty simple. The difference being that it just has to be, it has to be where they can actually use it. functionally. I mean, that's a great deal of this stuff is where you really do have people who've got desktop sites or sites that are built for desktop that you get them up on a mobile and they don't work. They flatly don't work. And in this day and age, if you're not optimized for mobile, you're probably missing out, guys. You really are just like
the stats say that it's well over half of all website traffic.
It really is. It really is. Now, don't get me wrong.
Missing more than half of the world out there.
when we're talking about, marketing, which we talked about a little bit kind of as a bonus, you can certainly target desktops above mobile. If it turns out that really is your clientele, that they are sitting in a computer, in your marketing, look at actually weighting your bids heavier towards desktop, because you can do that where you make sure there's people on desktops that see the most of your advertising. So, I mean, especially in Google, that's where I'm talking about primarily. If you're doing that in search, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But that's also about knowing your audience. I mean, if that really is your audience as a professional audience that's sitting at a desk and that's how they're ordering, and really you do see that as most of your traffic, you're not trying to bring those people in. Or if, let's say, if it is a company store and you know that it's contained, it's kind of a walled garden, you know that this company is coming to you and the people who are working on it are always going to be ordering from a desk, then fine, you can say that. But really, if you're talking about a broadly applicable site, really mobile has got to at least be part of the calculus where you try and understand what is this going to look like if you're not checking it out. And also, if you're not checking it out on Apple and on Android platforms, you got to know both. You have to know both how both work, because they don't always work ideally identically. We would love for open standards to mean that everything works the same, but yeah, it doesn't do that. So you need to make sure you check all these things.
Yeah. So Sandy had a comment here. Imagine how difficult for those of us that are not technical. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why you see platforms like a Wix or even Ecwid, for example. I didn't know a whole lot about it until Todd introduced me to it. But as I got more into it, I mean, the thing about it is it's fairly simple, and I can do 10 products and test it out and make sure that I feel really comfortable with it before I even pay anything. I mean, so that you're going to see the growth in that. But the cool part for those folks that aren't technical is that you have a real understanding. A lot of times my problem is I get caught up in what I know, and I don't spend enough time understanding the difference between the things that to me seem like, that should just be the way, and that's a mistake on my part, and so I've worked really hard to try to fix those things. So same thing for you guys out there. Take that opportunity to go, okay, maybe I know it, maybe it comes easy to me, but have the conversation with your customer, or understand, I love using hotjar.com as a way to kind of, even if I can't talk to everybody that's hit the e-commerce site, I can at least understand, kind of feel their pain, so to speak. When somebody's been through 36 pages and you see them searching and not finding and scrolling to the bottom and scrolling back up and scrolling to the bottom, you're like, okay, where did they come from? And then try to put myself in their shoes going, okay, if they came from this particular ad or this particular post or whatever, my guess is they were expecting to find this and they didn't. Yeah. So how do I overcome that? So
people who don't know, like Hotjar does kind of like heat mapping and shows you the way people are clicking through your site and kind of the path through the site and where they're looking, where they're spending their attention. And the thing to think about with this, it's like you said, landing pages are another thing. If you do run ads, if you have people coming to your site, the way they come in, like I said earlier, you should never be guessing at the next step. You should never be looking for the next thing you have to do. It should be pretty obvious. And we talked about this last time, above the fold. You shouldn't have to scroll a lot to get to the next step either. So really, that's when you're talking about accessibility, it's about consistency of expectations. When the customer comes in, what are they seeing and what are they expecting next? Or do they know what they need to do to go further in, or honestly, just to take the next action you want them to take? Remember, this is an action you want from them. Help them understand how to make the decision and what to do next. It should, like I said, accessibility is not only just where they're appearing, it's also, is it easy for me to access the content I need to make my decision and then access the functions I need to make the purchase? That's really what it is. So funny enough, it's ease of use also. But the reason I brought it into accessibility is because so often that ease of use is entirely wiped out. Yeah, ease of use is super important. If you can't get to the site at all, it just flatly doesn't work on the right platforms where your people are at, and then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and look at all the times you click on that link and it goes nowhere. It's like,
Yeah.
really, you actually paid, for me to click on that link, and it doesn't go anywhere. How do you not know this?
Yeah.
Or it opens you up to the base level of all of the things purchasable on the site with no
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Custom landing pages, folks. Custom landing pages. If you have an ad that talks about a certain feature or a product that you want to sell someone, and it dumps them out into the store with no next step, you've probably lost it, because they were like, I clicked on this because it had a racerback tee that I liked, and now I'm looking at all the garments ever. That's not going to help them make their decision. If you're advertising a thing, the thing that they're getting advertised should be the first thing they see. But which actually kind of takes us into our next step, really. Let's go ahead and move right on. I know we're already well in it, but let's move into the next kind of pillar that I wanted to put up here, and that is applicability. And in this case, this is really about targeting, folks. This is about not just about targeting, but it is just about literally applicability. How applicable are the things you are offering to the audience that you have in front of you? So your garment selection, your decoration style, the site function, the content, the stock designs you're adding if you're someone who's doing stock stuff, or your branding, the branding in your style. Everything should be aimed at a chosen audience. And like I said, everybody who says my audience is everybody, you don't have an audience yet. Everybody is not an audience. Everybody is a failure point. So really, this is a chosen audience, something that you've decided on. Everything you do should be targeted to their needs, wants, and interests, because there's nothing like a massive mismatch between the style and the communication of the site and the user base. People can feel alienated. They show up and they don't understand what's going on, or they feel like they're in the wrong place. Like I said earlier, if you take a super corporate customer and you bring them into, Pee-wee's Playhouse version of your website, there are certain people who are going to see that and be like, okay, well, forget that. I'm not here for fun. I'm here for business. And there's other people where if you bring them into super 80s chrome and wood grain corporate site, when they were coming to have fun, you could bring your punk rock band into your corporate site and everything is smooth, edgy, and has corporate speak in it. They're also going to look at this like, who are these idiots? Who are these guys who are trying to, talk to me like this? I don't care about all this technical BS. I want to just, I want fun. I want to design some stuff. I want it to rock. I mean, there are different ways you can pivot where honestly you can end up alienating somebody before they ever start. And really, there's a lot of that. If you bring people in and show them a bunch of business casual stuff and they're all, tour promoters or something, you're going to have a mismatch in style with your garments. All of it has to be applicable. And so I'm actually a proponent of doing single customer based stores. When we're talking about company stores, when we're talking about large clients that we're expecting to have a certain amount of either high turnover, or we're doing direct retail style stuff where we actually have a secondary client that's actually buying from our client and we're providing the store for that. We're doing fulfillment on that basis. It doesn't make any sense for me not to do individual stores. Most of the e-commerce plans, if you're buying into a system or a plan, especially the stuff that's really big in our industry, they often have either affiliate stores, sub stores, or multiple storefronts you can do. I really am a proponent of branding those individually and having their own names, brands, content selection, garment selection for each of those things. And I know that means more effort. Don't get me wrong. I do know that. You're going to have some core staples. Like I'll tell you, the base polo shirt, if I'm doing a bunch of corporate websites, the base polo shirt, I'm going to choose a couple of polo shirts that I really love, and they're going to be in probably every category with different colors shown as the first color. Like they're going to be in multiple sites because those are my staples that I know how they decorate. I'm curating that. But I'm definitely going to have a little bit different approach depending on who I'm working with. If I'm working with a plumbing company, I'm going to have stuff that is washable, that is stain resistant, that's a little more hardcore than if I'm working with bankers. I mean,
maybe a little longer tail on that shirt.
Yeah, no doubt. No, more tall, no lie. I worked with a bunch of plumbing and contractors. Plumbing and contractors like tall sizes because they want an extra tail so they don't have a plumber's crack. No lie. That is actually a thing. That is absolutely a thing. So
know your market.
Know your market. No lie. We have a ton of contractors, and they put talls on shorter guys because they were trying to keep them from having the classic plumber's crack. So yeah, absolutely know that stuff, but that's solving a problem for them.
Yeah.
So invariably, and the other thing is you increase trust by having that face for them. I think for company stores especially, when you come in and the branding has something to do specifically with the company, they don't have to guess where they're at. They don't have to wonder if they're going to get the right product because they come in and immediately see the kind of decoration and product that they're expecting from moment one. You never have that issue. It's applicable to them and to the question they want you to answer, the problem they have. The problem is I need garments for X category. X categories right in front of their face when they come in. And you can also handle that even on a larger, broader site by having sub pages or categories. And when you have advertising, you bring people directly to that subcategory, to that landing page, so that immediately what they see first is applicable to them. So really, that's what I'm looking at. Like I said, I'm a proponent of those single customer stores. I really love kind of siloing off the stores so that it doesn't look like you're just somebody who services everybody. It seems like you're giving them a direct experience just for them. But you can do it in multiple ways. I mean, how do you guys see that? How do you see people kind of win or fall when it comes to putting together things that are applicable to customer bases?
Well, I think the beauty today is how easy it is to do that, and to make that personal experience that's so relatable to that individual group or company, or it's just with minimal effort. You can do that kind of thing. So it's crazy that people don't do it.
Yeah. I agree with you guys 100% on that. I mean, I think it comes down to, and it is that really difficult, when Erich talks about e-commerce versus commerce or whatever. I mean, this is a business thing that you have to think about. This is a business because this could be the same thing in whatever way that you sell. It's just more pronounced in the e-commerce world because it is so easy to just go, nope, right. next, swipe right, kind of thing. And so you're you have to think about that from that perspective of, Marc Coudray said this the other day, and I think Marc Coudray is somebody that is worth following and listening to. But he said the biggest problem he sees most companies make is they take too many orders. They take they don't say no, and so they're spending their time dealing with the 80% of customers that give them the most headaches, yet they're not spending enough time with the 20% of customers that are ideal for them and that will allow them to be successful and profitable. So it is that whole thought of, let's make sure that we're talking to the right people. We understand who they are. They understand who we are. And applicability is a great way to talk about that, Erich. I think basically understanding the style and the functionality and what they expect and focusing on that. So good stuff there for sure.
Well, it definitely applies.
So
yeah, sure. Briefly, it definitely applies to other things we talked about earlier, like design thinking, where we're saying, let's identify a problem and solve it. Really hone down and say, if the customer's problem that they have with me is ease of use or how long it takes to get something done, how can I pare it down? Let's make the e-commerce site a tool that does this function. That functionality is also part of applicability. If the answer never was online design, now this is something that gets really contentious with e-commerce stuff, online designers being able to put designs on something. If you're a digital decorator, online design is pretty important. It can be important. People may want to do that. If you have a customer who never wants to touch an online designer, funneling them into an online designer and making them play with their own art is not a good idea. There are customers who do not want to do that. You should probably have an option for them, or literally a separate site for someone who just wants to send things in and make quotes. You don't always have to have the same channel for everybody. That's part of this. You can have multiple channels in your business.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and so if you're focused on one niche, that's fine. You can also focus on another niche, and that can be store-based. Okay.
That's the best thing with e-commerce is you can actually silo those niches out and target them specifically.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I just read Todd's comment there.
I'll put it up. I'm a good sport. Come on. If there was a problem, I'll solve it. Erich. There you go. Now I actually said it. You can't say it, Todd. I made more buddy.
All right. So real quick before we keep moving on here, first and foremost, Terry, just make a note on the yellow legal pad there. Next time we have Erich join us, he's only allowed 3 points. Okay, no more 5 pointers. Three is the max.
When he got to 3 early on, he said, "I'm going to talk about the applicability," and I said, "We're probably not." I'm more guilty than you, Erich. So
yeah, I know. Valerie said, currently banging my head against the wall this morning because I'm trying to please that wrong customer. Exactly. Yep. So just think of all of the things you could have been doing instead this morning, Valerie, to be be successful. And I get it. I know it's hard. I'm terrible at saying no. That's one of the number one things I have on my list of things to improve about myself is saying no more often. Nicely.
It's like when your grandpa's giving you a quarter and they hold it in front of your face and they're talking to you and all you can do is follow that quarter. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way a lot of us do business.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So here's my thought, guys, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there in the middle because yes, we are now officially into bonus time. I say let's just keep going because looking at the calendar, we're actually booked out through the middle of August, so it would be end of August before we get back to this. We're already doing a bonus program next Monday to finish off last week's. I think this is really important information for people to have. So you guys good to kind of keep going until we cover it all?
Let's do it. Good. Two more categories.
Two more categories.
Slightly less.
It's all good. It's good information. Let's. I don't think we need to cap it. Nobody says we have to only be an hour.
That's true.
That's just our own made up thing.
You guys need a breather. The recording will be there for you. So.
Exactly. Take a potty break real quick and okay. All right. But let's get to number. What is this? 4?
Number 4.
Yeah, number 4. Let's go to this one. And this one, I've said this in every show for every reason, as a pitfall, as a pillar, whatever it is, it's consistency. Consistency is the key to building trust. Now, that doesn't, no matter what you do, and we know as a weekly podcast, consistency, pretty huge on the thing. If you're not there when people expect you to be there, it's a problem immediately. You could have delivered, say, 300 some episodes. If you don't show up for the episode, everyone knows once you've been consistent, but that also means that that's because they have an expectation built and they trust you to be there. So that's the thing. No matter what aspect of your site, no matter what process we're talking about, the customer should be able to trust the outcome. The policies also, your policy should be evenly applied across the board. Absolutely, people are. I see people talking about this. How do I integrate? How do I integrate my standard decoration and my online decoration? I'll say this: if you're doing things that are wildly different, and if you're doing them for a reason, separate them. Don't have them together. Because if you have a different policy for how you handle online orders and orders that are not online, someone will find that out, will order on both sides, and you will have a problem. It's better to be consistent across the board, or like we said before, silo these things out. You can have 2 brands for your business. They don't have to be one branded thing. Trust me, look at some of these larger businesses and you will see that people are siloing out different parts of that business so they can operate differently under the right circumstances for the particular clientele and to get the profit margins right for the kind of business they're doing. So no matter what you're doing, make sure you're consistent there. There's also consistency in content. If you're describing products yourself, and by the way, I will say this, guys, don't just use the catalog descriptions for everything if you can help it. Using catalog descriptions for everything means that your content is the same as everyone else's content. One of the things I did very early with company stores is go in and, I'm not like the, what was on Seinfeld, the J. Peterman catalog. I'm not going in and doing like fun descriptions of everything necessarily, but I tried not to sell on the things like, to us, they can sell us on fiber content and the way things are sewn and the seams and the buttons and the plackets and that kind of stuff they sell to us because we're people who know garments very well. To a customer, you might want to sell where you would wear it. Is it good for the gym? Is it good for outside? Is it breathable? Things that are actually about how it feels, where you would use it, how it's useful. So things that actually matter to a customer. Same thing we talked about applicability. It's you want that thing to make sense to the customer. But when you're doing that, if you do that for one garment, and this is where we get into problems, people start bringing in garments from all these different vendors, and they use the catalog descriptions for each vendor, and you'll find that one has sizes here on the top and then not on the bottom, and one has something here and not on this side. And if your platform isn't handling that, you're doing your own descriptions. Everything should be consistent. People should know where to look for sizing, where to look for colors, where to look for content, or if you do want the fiber explanations, people do know the difference between polyester and the cotton. If you want that stuff on there, make sure that your layout on the site is pretty uniform and people always know where to look for things. Same thing with your site branding, your product setup, your packaging. Having this really consistent look, feel, and a predictable process makes your customers comfortable with the service. So, it's great to surprise and delight people. I love this idea of small things that surprise people and delight people. It's like, small things freely given, a little extra in the box when you ship stuff is awesome. even if it comes down to a little handwritten note, you open up your box and the inside flap is printed with a thank you. Stuff that surprises people is great. What they don't want to surprise on is sudden surprises in fees, sudden surprises in the way the process works, suddenly finding out way late into the process that everything's out of stock. Nobody wants that. So you really want to have this consistent, trustable process that whenever you come to it, it's the same. So I know you guys probably have some examples on this. I would love to hear you guys talk a little on consistency too, because this is something we have problems with all over the place.
And Eric, it's almost like when you're talking about describing products that you have a template that every time it's the same. And while you're talking about that, I was thinking about the Two Regular Guys show. We have an outline, right? And every week we follow the outline, and all we do is we have a shell, and we go in and we drop in the new information, the new questions, the new news items. And so anybody who's listened to this show 5 times knows exactly what order things go in, and they know that at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about what's happening next week. And we're going to be talking about things that we're doing. At the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking about news items that are pertinent to the industry, but it's every single week. It's following the same formula. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you have to do. And I couldn't agree more, Eric, that when you're looking at those descriptions, if they don't make sense one to the next, then the customer starts getting confused. And when they start getting confused and start struggling to figure out what you're talking about, you've lost them. It's that world today that, wow, if I'm not following you 5 seconds in, somebody else could probably do this for me instead. That's going to make it easier for me.
Well, and that's the strength of most of the site providers, the software as a service providers, is that they are really working on that. And a lot of them are even bringing in the catalog content so that they're regularizing it for you. The thing is, when you do, especially like if you make your own site, say like you're talking about Ecwid or Shopify or one of the sites where you're bringing in your own content, that's where it gets bad, because people get lazy and they copy and paste from somewhere else. And when they do that, they have a tendency to miss that formatting type stuff. And you end up where it's weird, where it's like you'll have one outlying item that doesn't make sense to anybody. It really is just about looking at it from the eyes of someone who has no idea what you're talking about. And the best thing you could do is probably just get somebody who really does have no idea about your industry to help you out. If you can find a friend who is engaged like you, who you can help them in the same way. Mastermind groups are awesome for this. Have somebody else look at it who has no idea, or have a flat customer look at it. If somebody who you can trust, who doesn't really know your products really well, and say, does this make sense? They will identify these consistency problems quickly. I mean, consistency in process you should already be working on. If you don't have that consistency in the way you deliver in your brick and mortar, there's nothing about your e-commerce site that's going to make it better. It's only going to make it worse, because it adds more complexity for people who are not used to the process. But when we're talking about presentation, it's very easy to get lazy and just, copy paste, not use the same kind of images, caliber of images, not show the same features on each thing when you have differentiators between them. And that's something that you have to watch for. It's much better if people can have an expectation, go to it. Like I said, no problem with surprising people. In fact, we talked about the show. I think we sometimes do that. We'll jump in and we'll do bonus time, though I think that's become expected now. But, if we can have a weird thing happen in the middle of the show. We can change things up. We can have 2 guests some days. We can bring in a guest in the beginning if we want to. And that's cool to sometimes jump in, and people then take a lot of notice of that if you do something that breaks the mold. But even then, when we do it, it's never something that we're surprising you with that isn't understandable, that's off format, that doesn't make sense to the rest of the show, that is, it's not from another part of the world. It's not that it's not applicable. It's just that it might be a little different, and that's okay. It's that you have to still have a consistent foundation underneath it that people can trust. Yeah.
I mean, it is good to be, I think you guys both hit you're talking about this show as an example. Mm-hmm. Terry's exactly right. I think that's been one of the keys, is that consistency, but that doesn't mean that we have not tweaked it over time.
Absolutely.
You've got to take the feedback in that you get, or just, kind of always trying to be a little bit better. So you're tweaking it. But I do think that, staying consistent, having a format, having all of that is applicable into the e-commerce world. In fact, I talk about a lot, what I call, make sure that you sweat the small stuff. Get the details right. Get the, make sure that, things work and that it makes sense, and that this looks like this, and all of that other stuff. So I think that's really an important point to make, is that to stay consistent is important. And a lot of that comes down to just putting, it's going to take a little extra effort, but you do need to sweat the small stuff in those cases.
Here's what the people don't think about very often when they do use software as a service, and this is where I'll kind of call it out. One of the bad parts about using templates or software as a service is that they'll have things like the return policies pre-populated.
Yeah.
And if your return policies aren't the same as the ones that are pre-populated on there, you need to go edit that information page. Or they'll have an About Us page or a frequently asked questions page that has basic questions on it that you're supposed to replace. If I get to your site and it has placeholder text on it, you look like a fake site. You look like a site that's going to scam me out of my money.
Can I add to that? Photo not available. Give me a break. Go take a photo.
A bad photo at this point is better than no photo. Now,
Exactly.
we all have cameras on our phones at this point that are equal or better than anything I ever used in the early days of e-commerce. So it's not like we can't do that now. But seriously, not having the content people need to make these decisions happen is a problem. And like I said, anytime that you look like a scam site, because scam sites do exist, they're out there. I have to deal with them all the time in my current work in e-commerce, where people will just throw together these sites. They have a generic logo that they populate these running design, like stamped logos on them with weird names in them, and they use the same 50 products, and they run these all out, and they're scams. They're phishing scams. And you'll look and things don't match up. They all have the same address on 100 sites. They all have the same, they have boilerplate in there that doesn't make sense. They have return policies that don't make sense. Make sure that you go through, if there's text on your site, you should know what it says, and you should probably have edited it. So on the templates, be careful about that stuff. That's part of your consistency, is that your message should also be consistent all the way across the board.
Yeah.
And it should sound like you. The voice
Totally.
should be consistent too.
And as you're getting started with this stuff, if this is new to you, I mean, I think a lot of people, will get that, okay, I'm going to try this. Oh, I can't figure it out. Well, guess what? Just go hit all the buttons and see where everything goes, and make a change and refresh and go, okay, what happened? Oh, shoot, that didn't work. I mean, if you get to a point where you've got it so jacked up that it's not going to work, reach out to their support or start over. I mean, when you've got nobody at your site yet, anyhow, these are the times to make sure that you get all of the things right and the things fixed. I mean, heck, we do that with our Two Regular Guys site all the time. I'm constantly trying to okay, what is it? Yeah, that doesn't. Okay, let me try this. Oh, maybe there's another kind of thing that we could bring in. I mean, I was pretty stoked when I was able to do a custom button for people to go to our website and listen to the podcast. I was like, dang, I'm really cool.
Well,
and I'm not, and that's just it. I'm not. It's just that I was willing to try. I was willing to keep trying it and break it a few times and go from there. So,
and failure is rarely fatal these days. These days, they're going to warn you before you delete your entire product selection. Almost all of those software products are not, because do you think they want to spend their support money on you getting fixed? No, they absolutely do not. They would rather you don't do that. So they're going to try and stop you from the most fatal stuff. Plus, almost everyone right now has some form of FAQ, help, video sets, support. It's just a given that this stuff is there. And honestly, you should be kind of suspicious if you don't see a YouTube channel, if you don't see, some sort of support there to help you get started. I would worry about that. That's something you should be looking for.
And every failure is a opportunity to learn. So the more failures you can do, the more learning you'll be able to do as well.
Comment here. Fix it till it's really broke. No, don't get me wrong. You can keep monkeying with something until something's wrong, but especially in that pre-launch, like Aaron said, when you're in that pre-launch version of the site and you haven't taken it live, kick the tires a little bit. And especially if you have affiliate sites, the other thing you can do when you have multiple sites or affiliate sites, have that main one that you set up with the help from the support team, kick off a new affiliate and start kicking the tires on that thing, and don't ever show it to anybody. It's totally fine to get in there and do that if you're doing this yourself.
Yep. Yeah, we're doing that right now with our success group. If you go to oursuccess.group, you'll see our new and upcoming, but it's got a lot of problems that we still got to fix. So, but hey, we're trying it. We're getting it out there. So,
sometimes you have to. Sometimes it takes time. Now, definitely don't forget to reach out though, because there are people to help you. Reach out when it's time for it. I mean, don't be me and keep kicking the tires forever and trying to make sure you do it by yourself.
That's a good point. Ram Deep is helping me tremendously right now. He's places like Upworks and Fiverr and stuff like that. You can actually find good
Yeah.
people. Ramdeep is a really smart guy and has helped me with a ton of things. And it's $10 an hour. I mean, it's unbelievable. And he's a full stack web developer
Nice.
on WordPress. So I'm happy to share his info with you guys. So Tony says, I failed for 6 months. But print mafia. I mean, those are learning experiences. So,
and what I'm going to say, when you put out an e-commerce site, don't expect that it's going to be the absolute, like the very first day, the very first month, the likelihood that you're going to just tear out and, go viral and do a tremendous amount of money. It's not very likely, especially when we're talking about just a custom site that is an echo of your brick and mortar business.
Yeah.
It'd be very different. Sometimes people do that. If you go out there and especially when you're talking about making your own slogans or whatever, every once in a while something will hit and take off and be great. It's rare. When it does happen, it's awesome. It's not something you should probably expect to happen for every time you launch something. I mean, that's just how it is, guys. You're sometimes going to have to put in a lot of work. It's like I always say, it's the 10-year overnight success. Whenever somebody asks me about how I got to where I did in certain aspects of my career, I'm like, oh yeah, well, because I was eating dirt for 10 years and then suddenly the mass of everything I had done built up and was noticeable. It's not that you necessarily come out of the gate and everything's awesome. Usually there's some foundation work that goes into it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So before we get to the last one here, I know, Erich, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I did want to go ahead and just have us directly, because I've got some thoughts on this here real quick too. Charles asks, what's the best way to integrate your website describing your regular services and your e-commerce products? And you've probably said this already in your way, Erich, but the way I would look at this is I would look at the entire thing. I think this goes back to what you're talking about, where e-commerce versus commerce is not really a thing. It's all, and I think the same thing should be happening. So if I go to a website, I don't care if they've got e-commerce and then I find out about this over here. I want to go to a website that has the information that I want. If I can happen to buy something on that too, and that's what I want to do, great. But if we don't go to websites specifically just to buy something necessarily. We go to the website to solve a problem, to answer our questions. Yeah. And if we can buy something to do that, then that's bonus, So that's the way I would look at it. Go for it, Erich.
Oh no, and the thing is, it's also, there can be multiple channels even when you're integrating this. It's not just that you have e-commerce products and you have your regular services. We can have it all together. Let's say if the website, if the e-commerce is servicing that store, then absolutely that's one thing. The other thing is, if we have, like I said earlier, company stores or individual branded stores, those things aren't the same thing, and they don't necessarily need to be in the same place. You can have those siloed experiences for e-commerce if it makes sense for that particular channel. But definitely when you're talking about when it's all one, the other thing you can definitely do, people will have, say, a digital decorating side and a traditional decorating side, or we'll have, let's say, a quoted kind of contract decorating side, and then they'll have the decorate as you want to, individual small order side. You can funnel people in two directions when they first hit your site. You can absolutely start with a landing area that has that involved. If you're doing your own advertising, I would try and separate those and have people land where they belong. But if they're coming to your main site and you want to say, these are the two things I do, there's nothing wrong with saying, if you want to design your own small order or orders of up to this amount or whatever it is, go here. If you're looking for a contract quote and you want to get quoted, go here. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with having a form for quoting where someone's going to call them up and handle everything. And then for the people who want to self-serve, here's another site. So you can do that. And most of these platforms that do, say, digital decorating or direct sales will have the ability to at least do some form of custom content pages. In those pages, you can definitely describe your traditional business and add some sort of quoting form. And I think that that's usually how it's done, is where you will have a quote form that's done in a more traditional way where somebody will reach out to them who handles things. And then you will have a service yourself, digital decorating, online designer process that is a separate channel. So split them early, split them early and have them do the right process for what makes sense for their kind of order.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Frank says nothing wrong with drinking. Talking about Valerie says makes me want to drink every time I deal with them.
Everything that wrong customer will do that, folks.
yeah, exactly. And just look how long it took Amazon to get up and running. So good.
Yeah, Amazon
there.
wasn't the Amazon you see now from day one. Yeah. Remember when it was a bookstore?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. All right, Justin, good question. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to get to that one. We may want to come back and just hit this more in the comments after the fact, Eric, or
this one's real quick. Fast. It says, when offering online service to individual customers, how do you suggest avoiding the pitfall of the store not performing well enough to make it cost effective, i.e., selling screen printed tees and they're only able to do 2 or 3 tees per month? Number one, you go ahead and do a deposit on that. If someone wants to have you build a store and they cannot guarantee that, say, if you do this much per month, we're going to pay for it. If you don't do this much per month, at the end of the month, you're going to pay for the building of the store. That's one of the things, is setting expectations out of the gate. The other thing is, if you're doing screen printed tees like that, screen printing doesn't always work really well with these individual custom decorated garments unless you end a contract with people and you are willing to float them, or they are going to put some sort of deposit down that covers your production costs. So you say, I'm going to do the production on this deposit, then we'll sell individually to your clients or whatever. And if there's this much at the end of the month, you're going to buy this stock that I printed. And that's the agreement we enter into from the beginning. It's something I've done with company stores before, that if we have a bunch of dead stock that has to be produced screen printed, that's going to be produced before it's sold, they enter into a contract that after a certain period of time, they're going to buy the stock that's there. And they know that. Yeah. So there are ways to do pre-production, or you can do the classic way, which is to go ahead and say, we're producing once a month. If we reach this number, that's how we do it. It's actually at this date is the cutoff, and then we send it. Now, people don't love that experience for online, so I'm going to say I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you can do pre-orders.
Yeah.
So that's my attitude on it.
That's a good point. And the other thing to think about is that, if you are a screen printer and then that's what you do, and that doesn't make sense, but yet you feel like it's something you'd like to get into, you can always outsource that stuff. You may not make as much profit up front, but it's a way to kind of test the market and understand if there is a market there, if it does make sense to, grow it to a point where you can invest in your own, direct garment equipment or whatever the case may be. But there's plenty of services out there. People outsource, partnerships that you can make with other folks, print on demand type places, so there's plenty of different ways to go about tackling that and not make it a total loss there of cost effectiveness. So.
They don't need to know in the back end how you fulfill this, guys.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. They don't know.
All right. Well, that was fairly quick, I guess, on our scale of quickness. But let's get to the fifth one here, Eric.
I'm going to make this actually pretty short because I think you can make it fairly short. Don't know. I originally thought with putting this in as a pillar, but I think we need to discuss it anyway briefly, and that's experience. We're all competing in the online space with really similar tools and products. We're using software as a service. We're using templated sites. They're all very similar. So the way we present our products, the way we talk to customers, our policies, the experience of working with us is absolutely critical. So we should be looking at all times to say we care about our customers. We should be showing that care. We should, from a product selection, right? We start with product selection. We know who you are. We know you're answering these questions. Here are the products that answer those questions for you, that solve your problems. The packaging we provide being decent and looking good and working correctly and arriving intact. E-commerce, I can't tell you how many times the problem is that you don't package well and your garment arrives dirty, torn, your cup arrives broken. Those things are not worthwhile. Better to raise the price and have the right packaging than have it show up destroyed when it gets there. So from product selection to packaging to the store branding to the follow-up content and the contacts that you make, you have to think about the experience the customer is having and how they have, like, literally, what are they feeling? How are they encountering you? And what are you leaving them with? So the thing I want to say is that I see decorators kind of providing more of these above and beyond experiences, but not everybody's getting it in the e-commerce space yet. I know it's a lot easier when you're upfront with somebody, you're shaking hands, and I know we can't do that anymore, but when you're talking to somebody directly, it seems to be easier to kind of have the force of personality bring across that experience. Yeah. But we need to bring more of that into what we're doing online, because that top of mind kind of awareness they have is very much based on the way they feel about the experience they have with us.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, I think we can almost leave it at that. You need to think about how customers feel, what their experience is with you, and try and flip it and think about your own consumer experience with companies and think about how that made you feel. Did it build trust? Did you feel like that company cared about you as a customer or wanted you to be there? And that's really the biggest thing I can leave with On's experience. It's like, make people feel like you want them to be there and that they're important.
Love it. All right, Terry, any follow up to that? Or we?
Well, just real quick, I was talking with a company recently, and the owner said, we're definitely not the cheapest folks out there, absolutely not the cheapest, but our presentation to the customer is probably better than anybody in the industry. And I thought, man, isn't that a great concept? And he said, we're knocking on the door of doing $5 million in sales right now. And so many people think it's going to be about price. Although if you're a regular listener, it's not ever about price. It's rarely ever about price. But the fact that he said our presentation is second to none says a lot, and be that person. And that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I love that. And Terry, when you say it's not ever about price, I think that's really important, because here's the deal: when it is about price, you are now a commodity, and that is a whole different ball game. That is a whole different ball of wax that I don't think is for the faint of heart. Try being a commodities trader. It's not, it's not fun. And that's what you become when when the conversation is about price. Is you are a commodity now. And, that's a whole new, and not saying that you can't do that, but then your focus becomes completely different. It's about, cutting the costs and doing all sorts of stuff that's really, really hard to do, especially if you're not have a ton of capital behind you to do that, Right. So you're not going to be able to go compete on price. If Amazon decides they want that market, they will, and they'll sell at a loss for as long as it takes, because you will run out of money before they do. That kind of thing. Right. So that's I think a great place to leave it. Erich, I'll let you have the final word though, sir. And then after you do that, if you'll just jump right into telling us about what you've got happening coming up here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think final word is, I'm just going to bring back our bonus that I said earlier. Guys, you have to promote this thing. This is the easiest way to put it. You have to market to make it. If you're not going to do a marketing, if you're not going to promote what you're going to do, there's no chance that you're going to make it. I know somebody will say, if I make the best product, it'll get out there and people, word of mouth, that's great. But for most of us, we all know we're usually decorating products that are already made by some vendor. They're not things that we're coming up with a brand new, out of the box, weird product. It's something everybody usually has access to. So for us, it really is about marketing, and then doing the things that we said here, making it easy for things for your site to be usable for everybody, being in the places people need you to be, and making sure that all your content is accessible. It's easy to find things that people need, making sure you're consistent, and honestly, getting that experience right, so that when people come to you, they leave feeling good about what they've done and feeling like they've had not only a good experience, but one that was equitable, fair, and gave them a product they like. If you can do all of that, then promoting is just the way we're going to get people in the door. We have to load them in so that we can expose them to this awesomeness that is the site, that is our processes, the way our business operates. So market to make it, get them in the door, and then hit them with all of these stages. And honestly, once you get it built, once you do this the first time and really get it ingrained in the company, the truth of the matter is, it's the second, the third, the fourth attempt get better. So once you set this up that first time, the next attempt, the next store, and when you get everything working and everything's firing on all cylinders, you'll find that one really good company store will be 10 stores someday, because you can then know, okay, I open up and I fire all this stuff off, and I already have packaging in line. I have my experience in line. I know how to work my templates. I know how to do all this. Spend that time on lead end. Think about these pillars. And when that foundation is there, building on top of that foundation gets a lot easier. Yeah. All right. So with that, stuff that I have going on briefly, I'm just going to go once again mention the Demystifying Next Level Digitizing webinar is there in a recorded form for people who hadn't had a chance to get it. So I talked about better running, bolder, more beautiful embroidery, faster cycle from concept to completion. Go ahead and get access to that now. It's at the same place it has been, bit.ly/ErichDD. And honestly, it's just, you get a chance to see that recording. It's something that I usually do at trade shows, and this is one that a lot of people requested. Just a great way to get more texture in and get your embroidery a little more interesting, so it doesn't look like everybody else's, and quicker cycling and quicker going from honestly from failure to success and learning is part of that too. And then today we actually have at 2:30 p.m. again, the Take Up will be on. So 2 shows today. Holy cow! And today it's actually going to be about art preparation and art files and things like finding fonts. I often help people find fonts, but there's some times where you really shouldn't even bother as a digitizer. We're going to do a lot of talking about what do we do with art? How do we work directly from an embroidered sample instead of nice, clean art? And when shouldn't we bother looking for clean art as digitizers? So catch me today. You can get me at facebook.com/Erich.Campbell. And actually, I think I might have the wrong video link up there, but that's not a big deal. Go ahead and go to my Facebook page, and that's a good way to get it. So facebook.com/Erich.Campbell. And honestly, if you go to YouTube and search for Erich Campbell, that weird little H that makes Terry call me Erich makes me infinitely Googleable. So Erich Campbell, there's not too many of us. Check me out there on Facebook, and you'll be able to get it live either on Facebook or on YouTube. And I'm happy to have your comments live.
Excellent. All right. Well, good stuff. Yeah, 2 shows today, and then you're
on Monday.
You're gonna bring these 2 characters. You'll be stuck in the middle again, as you are on screen now. We'll be kind of wrapping up the niche markets discussion. Yeah. I don't know, like a multicast, supercast. What are we calling it?
The crossover episode. Take Up and 2 other guys coming together on all of our channels all at once on Monday. And when we stream that, it's going to be everybody together on this. But really, it's more like, in my opinion, I'm bringing on Terry and Aaron as guests to finish their discussion about niche marketing, which is something they are excellent at. Terry's done quite a few seminars that never reach the number of niche market.
Never completed. The
seminar that never ends.
A number of super successful, never complete seminars. But I'm super happy to have you guys on to do that. And honestly, I'll be playing a little more host that day.
All right. Fantastic. Cool. Looking forward to it. Well, thanks so much, Erich. You amazing. Now back to work.
All right. Awesome. Produce the rest of the show, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Erich. There we go. He even took himself out of the show. What an amazing guy. All right, Terry. Well, what about you? What's coming up for you?
Well, my upcoming seminars at trade shows, the dates and times are on shifting sand. So, just check out my website, terrycombs.com, under tour dates, and I try to keep it up to date. I do have my screen printing business course coming up at Workhorse Products in Phoenix, August 22nd and 23rd. I'll be in Chicago at Atlas Screen Supply, September 19th and 20th. And as I said, go to terrycombs.com. And how about you, Aaron?
Just our success group stuff happening. Actually, Erich, I'm going to just skip the first one here because we've talked about that. The thing that I'm most excited about right now is we've got this success tracker program happening that I think is really a cool tool. To me, it feels almost like a recipe to be able to reach a goal. And so we've just got it kicked off. If you go to oursuccessgroup.com/success tracker, or not, I'm sorry, not /ST, just shorten it down as much as we can make it. oursuccessgroup.com/ST. You go over there, check it out, see what it's all about. It's basically accountability, support, and we're gonna, because we're in this industry, there's going to be swag too. You can't have something without swag. So if you'll get over there to, again, oursuccessgroup.com/ST to check that out. I'd love to hear your feedback about what you guys think about that opportunity. I mean, it's made for businesses to kind of get a 12-month goal put together and reach towards it. But I was talking to my wife about it last night. I mean, I can see how people might want to do something like this for, I'm going to use the same recipe and formula to try to lose 20 pounds. I mean, it's that same process. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to hearing more people get involved in that. So that's the main thing for me, Terry. But I think well past bonus time here, 94 minutes in, it looks like, and 92, I guess, right now. But so, Terry, closing another show here. Thank you very much to all of the regulators out there, everybody that participated, all of the great feedback and wonderful stuff from all the regulators today, Terry.
And I'll repeat, Aaron, what you've said. We want to thank our guest and show producer, Erich Campbell. You can find him at erichcampbell.com. And thanks to our sponsor, Impressions Expo.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to both of them, especially thanks to Erich for all that he is doing, the content he is putting out. We are excited to be a part of his world. So some days I just feel like I'm living in Erich's world. It's awesome. All right. Well, next week, Terry, on Monday, as we talked about, we're going to have our wrap up of the niche markets with Erich. That will be on all of the spaces right back here, over on Erich's program, anywhere that you can find us. And if I remember right, that's on at 4:00 Central Time, which is kind of mean
Central time is the center of the universe.
It's the center of my universe. It's the center of Aaron's universe. So 4:00 Central, 5:00 Eastern, 3:00 Mountain, and 2:00 Pacific and Terry time, Arizona time. So that'll be happening on Monday, the 8th. So a little bonus in there, so you can come check that out. And then next week, back at our normal time, we will be welcoming in a gentleman from outside of our industry. He's not a decorator, the reason that we've got him coming in is he is an SEO expert. And his name is Erich, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name right now because it's a little bit challenging. He did not pay extra for the H at the end of his name, so just Erich with a C. And he's going to help us determine the right keywords for our SEO, which is search engine optimization. So he's just an outside person that's an SEO expert, and we felt like it was good to bring a different perspective in. So we're excited to talk to him next Friday as well. So that's what's happening next week.
All right. So until then, I'm Terry Combs. He is Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the Two Regular Guys. Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.